Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to shift the conversation just a little bit. I am in no way trying to smear any government worker for sitting on the couch in their pajamas. What I'd really like to get down to is to understand how to convince, if possible, the American taxpayer that they're getting a better deal by allowing people to work at home. Now, I will preference these questions with the fact that through the pandemic, I got to participate in literally hundreds of Zoom calls, and what I witnessed seemed to be on the other end often some very unproductive people. So given the fact that that might have been a different set of circumstances, I'd like to ask you, Mr. Pelter, I'll start with you. Help me understand how to convince the American taxpayer and my constituents that they're getting a better deal by allowing more people to work at home. I'll begin with this. You made a comment earlier that transit costs were down. Give us some examples of how transit costs would be down, and how do you measure that now that more people seem to be working at home?
Thank you, Congressman. For that specific example, I would look toward locally here in the D.C. area, the SMART benefits that employees receive as part of their benefit package, and that includes things like subsidized rides on the Metro subway system. When less workers are commuting, we're spending less money on that type of transit.
Okay, perfect. So how much less are you spending in the last 12 months or the next 12 months in transit costs?
I would have to take that question back to the team for a specific answer on dollar differences.
So see, that's the part that makes this very difficult to explain to the American taxpayer. I'm hearing a lot from all four of you. I'm hearing a lot of philosophy, but I'm a businessman. I want to make the case to the American taxpayer. And so it's real easy to talk hypothetically and say we will be able to spend less money to get people into D.C. But that really doesn't mean a whole lot unless we can quantify that. So I know we're not going to answer that now, but as we proceed with these types of conversations, those are the kinds of answers that I'm going to be looking for. And I think those are the kinds of answers that our taxpayers and many members of this committee are going to be looking for. What percentage, Mr. Pelter, I don't mean to pick on you, it's just you're closer and it's easier for me to read your name. What percentage of employees would you say are DC-centric? Before and after the pandemic?
For the Department of Commerce, around half of our workforce is DC-centric or national capital area region. We experienced very minimal changes to that during and after the pandemic.
And so would you see an opportunity as you continue to experience attrition and rehire to decentralize employees from the DC area to other places that might have a lower cost of living and enable you to hire folks at lower salaries than you're required to do in DC?
Thank you, Congressman. My interests are in recruiting and retaining the best and brightest we can. Workplace flexibilities such as remote work or telework are one of the limited opportunities we can offer to our workforce to try to compete with other public sector agencies in the private sector. The Society for Human Resource Management, in fact, has listed workplace flexibilities and work-life balance as one of the key recruitment and retention requirements of the current workforce, and so it's something we're keying in on very closely.
So, Mr. Levitt, let me ask you: Are you keying in on, and how do you recruit outside of the DC area? It seems like that. If you're really looking for diversity, geographic diversity, trying to concentrate your hiring from maybe other areas with other universities, places where there's strong workforces, where folks would come to work at a lower cost than they might be able to do in DC. How does that play into the equation of remote workforce?
Thank you very much for your question, Congressman. Just a few quick answers to that. One is that we are engaging in partnerships with colleges, community colleges, universities across the country, and we are undertaking career fairs, hiring events for people across the country. For example, one specific area mentioned earlier is military spouses. We had approximately 1,200 military spouses participate in our last career fair, and we're having another one early next year. As a result of that, we increased the hiring of the number of military spouses by 39%, and that means that we, in my own office, just as an example, have someone working from Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson in Alaska, Fort Stewart in Georgia, from Pennsylvania. We have folks from across the country that even if their family moves to another duty station, we're able to sustain and retain that employee. That is one way we're helping save military families, and also employing and working with folks across the country where talent is.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know I'm out of time, but I'd just like to comment because I think that this is as important as we continue to have this discussion. We talk in concept about productivity. I'd really like to understand more how we measure productivity and how we make it better. I'd like to understand better how we might be able to make reductions in workforce as a result of people working from home. I'd like to understand better the dollar amount that we could save with transit costs. I'd like to understand better how we can hire an employee someplace else at a lower cost of living than is required in Washington, D.C. Those are the types of things that I think would be important to the American taxpayer to understand in order to feel better about this, or to recognize that maybe we ought to be bringing people back into an office. So I'm summarizing that by, I could be convinced, I'm not yet, but these are the types of things that I'd like to know to be convinced. Thank you. I yield back.